Hoi, ik ben Laura.
En ik ben Talita.
De Netflix-documentaire De Tindler Swindler is een van de meest spraakmakende documentaires van het moment.
In de documentaire zie je hoe oplichter Simon Leviev via Tinder vrouwen op zich verliefd laat worden, maar vervolgens honderdduizenden euro's van ze steelt.
Wij wilden heel graag weten hoe het met de slachtoffers nu gaat. Dus wij dachten, we gaan Cecilie en Pernilla gewoon even opbellen.
So I think the first question is, you guys are two normal women and you are now on Netflix with this huge documentary. Like, how has that been for you?
I'm still a little bit in shock, to be honest. It feels very, very surreal, to be honest, because when we went into this project and when we started, like, we had honestly no idea it was gonna hit this big.
Yeah, and it's just been so different than the first time, like, Netflix boom in then 200 countries at once. So it's been like, it's insane to see people from like, Colombia and South Africa and Japan. It's just been whoa, very, very weird, but very lovely to see like all the support that we've been getting as well.
The responses have been amazing. I mean, I think we all got bombarded really with so much love and support, and especially from women, I would say as well. And it's been amazing. I mean, like me and Cecilia, we started this like just to try and get his face out there and tell our story back in 2019. And we did it only to help other people and try and take away this like victim shaming. Because when we did this back in 2019, we knew that we were gonna get trashed for it, because that is how society is looking. Like you do this victim shaming, and we Cecilia just decided to do it anyway because we thought it was so important just to go out there and help people. But compared to this time, I think people really understand like the entire story and what really happened behind it. And I think it's so important to understand that when it comes to fraud victims, that it might be a really hard and difficult story that you have behind you.
Looking backward, were there any red flags maybe that you've missed?
I think that the situation that they are putting up as a team is so real, and when you're really trusted and you're in it, it's so different when you're sitting very comfortably looking at Netflix on your couch and can say, oh, I would never have fallen for that. But it's such like it's master manipulator, as we called him. And this is like when you trust them, and hindsight is the gift. You can always look back in time, and I should never have gone on that date to begin with, but it had happened, and all we want to do now is just to get some proper justice this time. So red flags, I just think it's difficult because it's such an insane story, and it's the reason why it has become like a movie, because that's what it felt like.
When you're living there a little bit in it, it's like, so if this is not real, it must mean that you're living in a movie, and that would be even more like surrealistic. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand that we were brainwashed from a number of people for a very long time. And I mean, I am not a weak person, or I would never imagine myself like this could happen to me, but it did. And to be brainwashed like that, it's absolutely horrendous, to be honest.
I think the nicest that I've heard from the feedback from people is people who've been around that kind of person, that like narcissist, the psychopath, that they've been in relationships with them, and they notice, I can totally understand the situation you were in. And that's just really, really nice to hear, because sometimes, of course, when this happens to you, you look back and what could I have done differently, but you can't live your life like that. This happened to you and you were just trying to save someone that was in a crisis, and that's what you did. That's what you decided to do.
And how about that gut feeling? Was there a gut feeling the first time you met him?
The thing is, like with narcissists and sociopaths like this, what they make you feel is this instant connection and instant trust. They adapt to what you want to hear and what you want to feel. Mm. So they are very, very good in what they're doing. I mean, we say that this is their full-time job, and this is been running as an entire company. So of course, if he would have come up to you directly and just said he has enemies in all these stories, you would have backed off, but they do it little by little.
I think people need to realize that this is a guy who's a proper narcissist. I would never tell the truth. He was on stand in Finland back in 2015 and said that he had enemies after him and was trying to convince the judge there. So this guy will never, ever admit like that. He's never going to give us the truth of why he's defrauding people, why he's doing this. He is utterly believing his own lies.
Has he tried to contact you in any way?
He blocks everyone. That's what he does. If you go after him, he loves blocking and pretends that. So that's the reality of how he's acting.
Like we are the enemies, just so you understand, who are after him.
Yeah. I don't think that he has anything that he wants to say to us either.
What do you think is the responsibility of Instagram or of Tinder for this kind of guys?
Well, I thought it was very good because what I heard, they shut his account down, but I'm not sure if that is confirmed and if he's still been able to get a new one. But I still think, like, for example, like with Tinder, did they take responsibility and shut his accounts down? So
like, yeah, it maybe starts online, but there's just one avenue of his, it's all this wealth that you see doesn't just come from what he defrauds from people. He defrauds companies as well. And it's one thing to be a catfish, to have a flashy life and you steal pictures, but that was his actual life. And I think people have to realize that you could actually see it, and you met Peter, the bodyguard, and like, this is just not something that was purely online. So yes, it was an avenue for him, but the fraud happened in real life, which I think is a big difference.
he met people in everyday life and everyday basis, or defrauded companies, like just by making contact with them as well. So it's not only about Instagram and Tinder.
So maybe enough about Simon. How are you guys now? Like, how do you pick up on your life after everything that has happened to you? How do you move on?
Well, it's difficult to properly move on when you have this coming out. I think for us, it's been like, okay, here we go again. We need to talk about it. It is our trauma, a lot of people are laughing about it, but it's still difficult for us to talk about it to that extent. But I just really want to see some justice here, not maybe particularly in our cases, but that society is taking the responsibility and are looking at how the systems are working, why the police didn't do anything. Ask police in their countries, like, why didn't you prosecute him? Why didn't you go after him? Those are the type of questions I want, hopefully can come out of this.
And then still, we still want to keep going and live our life a bit as well and be a little normal. I mean, like, we don't want to be victimizing ourselves and be a victim our entire life. I mean, this happened to us. I think we're handling it quite good. We have been fighting back, and that has been our therapy to actually try and get some justice. And that would actually, I think, have made me and Cecilia especially feel a bit better, because we fight it from day one when this happened to us, just to make sure it didn't happen to anyone else.
How do you think that this experience formed you as a person?
For me, that especially been open up my eyes. I thought it was so safe before. I thought that if someone would do something like this, police would do something. I think you were protected by the law. And I think this has really opened up my eyes that I'm actually a bit scared that we're not as protected as I thought we were.
What needs to be done to change that? Because I think it's really interesting what you're saying, that a lot of victims are not being heard, or their stories are not being picked up by official institutions, like, for example, the police. What do you think needs to improve? Is it also part of culture that we're still victim blaming a lot, or how do you see that?
We are, and I sometimes could get the feeling, and this is what happened with Cecilie as well. It's like, even when you come in there as a victim at the police station, they don't really understand what you have been through. A police one told me when I got a death threats on me and I was scared and I fled my country, I was sitting alone in another country. They told me that I had a very crazy imagination. This is how you get treated as a victim, and they definitely need better resources, and they need to take these type of cases more seriously as well, because this is ruining people's lives, and fraud have become such a big thing the last couple of years. That is the number one crime.
So I think, just to iterate, with the police and kind of the lack of investigations, across countries, we think that they would look at them in a bit better way, look at the grand scheme of things, but in the end, you're by yourself, and when they drop the case, and then you have nothing then he's free. And he's using that as well in Israel so much, you know, that he has no police going after him. So these girls are lying, you know, the police would have gone after me. And that's very, very, very painful that the system has abandoned you like this. It's not really fair.
Do you think something's going to change for you guys?
I mean, like, I hope so, but not only for us, but for like all victims that have been through something similar. And we really want to make a change. We want to change the way we see it, victims. We want to change, hopefully, I know this might sound dreamy, but better resources, that they would actually do something, that it can't go on like this anymore.
Because I think that I never viewed it like that. But when I went to the police, you know, like they never put it into the category of abuse, you know, but you were in a relationship with someone that like physically and mentally, I would say abuse, because you never gave your consent to what he made you go through. So instead of just putting it into the money, and she lost money, but money is just one aspect of this. And I think people forgetting about the human element here. And as Pernilla was saying, how they're meeting you and how they're actually talking to you is very much, not the best way, I would say. I was very scarred by the meeting with police in 2 countries, and they dropped the cases like super quick. So
do you think young people using Tinder should be more cautious, that there's also anything that they can do to be more aware of this, or is it really nothing to do to prevent this from happening?
I mean, like, I think you should be cautious in general. I mean, like, you can meet this type of people in the grocery store, you can meet them in the bar, you could meet them online. They are everywhere. We should always be a little bit cautious. But I think that what happened to us was also very, very extreme, because they were an entire team. It wasn't only one person. There were so many people involved in this as well.
Like a real professional fraud and scheme.
Maybe you want to say something to our young audience?
What I want to say to people who are listening is that don't let this movie scar you out of love or going on dates and enjoying life. Be cautious, of course, be cautious, be mindful of yourself. But like, love is still love, and it's wonderful. And like, you can't let this scar you for life, for believing that there are good people out there, because the world, like, thanks to the reception that we got, there is a lot of beauty out there and so much support that we've received. So that's what I would like to say.